The Evermore podcast is now sponsored by WFST Total Compliance. WFST provides fire safety requirements UK-wide to prepare you and your employees should the worst happen. Do what you do best and visit wfst.co.uk today. Enjoy the episode. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. It's me and Mark are back. There's no more holidays. We've got the gruesome twosome with you tonight. No young Dan this evening, but we're asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. It's Monday and I'm still not over the Brighton game. I'm still pissed off about the Amex Stadium. I don't know about you, mate.
It was I think it was completely one of those games, wasn't it? It's just everything sort of went wrong after about 4 minutes in. It just was, it was a really weird performance. And yeah, I think having your ass handed to you by an 18-year-old who looks very good, by the way, is not what you wanted.
No, but we'll get stuck right into that in a minute. We've got plenty of Newcastle talk to get stuck in. Just before we do, a little reminder, in case you're new to the channel, just checking us out for the first time, hello and good evening to you. Smash that button, subscribe, come and join us. We're over 5,000 subscribers, so loads of room for you here on Evermore, loads of Newcastle United content. Even in the international break, we'll still keep you chugging away with some Toon content before the season returns. And brand new to the channel as well, we have now got a membership, Mark, haven't we? I believe that you could be a member of the Evermore channel if you wish to do so.
It is entirely optional. You don't have to. It is just there to, it's one of those things to try to help the channel out a little bit more. If you want to join, you can hit the join button below on YouTube. $1.99 a month. We will be looking at, there will be membership badges, early access to some of the videos as well. So things like we can get sort of rumor has it videos, all that kind of stuff. We'll put out the night before to members. They normally go live at 7 a.m. But we'll get those out early for members. And there'll be obviously custom badges, custom emojis, shout outs, all that kind of stuff will be in there as well. So if you want to, that's great. If not, that's great. All the stuff will still remain on here as normal. But it's just we were asked about it a couple of times in the chat. So we have introduced that now as well. So that has gone live about an hour ago. So
very fresh, very fresh. We might even talk about the podcat giving you a birthday meow out. Possibly that could be something for members. Maybe just a special little meow, just for you, Ian, if you're a member.
Just for Ian, if he's in here, or for when he does catch up with us later on. One of the emoji images is the podcat for him.
Yes,
so I have done that.
That has to go to Ian. He has to pick that one. He really does. But we're going to get stuck right in a minute. We are live as always, guys. So jump in the comments. George was in early doors there, calling us doctors. Mark, we're doctorates now. So happy with that. Yeah, we can maybe give Eddie Howe some medical advice about not picking fucking Miggy Armour anymore. More on that in a minute. George is still filming after the weekend. Absolutely. Les has had to duck out early, but you have left a like, Les. So we do appreciate that. We will have a good show. Thank you so much. Roger the Dodger is in the house. Always good to see you, Rog. In the comments, Ian is also there, as is Jack. Let's get stuck in then, Mark. We're going to start with Fergie time, as you implied before. No, Sir Alex Ferguson hasn't come back with his magical watch that he passed to Jurgen Klopp and causes more mayhem. No, we're talking about Evan Ferguson, who, you're right, did look very, very good at the weekend. He didn't have to look too good because Dan Burn is slower than I am at centre-half. And I'm 41 and love my pasties. But he did look very good. He scored a hat-trick, rightly so, deserved it. But how shit did our defence look without Sven Botman in there, Mark? It has to be said. It was so noticeable, man, wasn't it?
There's no getting away from it, is there? I mean, he makes such a huge difference. And it was just... To call it pathetic is probably not a stretch. I mean, if you look at and I know it's been mentioned before, if you look at the gap that's left, particularly for us, I mean, the defending, the goalkeeping, everything for the first goal was horrific. From Pope's clearance to Tonali's lack of any effort whatsoever to once he's made that ridiculous flick to try and clear the ball, to try and then atone for that, to try and close down. Pope's handling to then the gap left in the centre of midfield, just in front of the defence. Stunning finish. Not take that away from the lad at all. But who on earth is plugging that gap? And then Fabian Schär for the third one, just hanging a leg out. And I know it was touched on Match of the Day, I think, as well. But it was awful. I mean, the defending was just absolutely atrocious.
It really was. I mean, we had some early chances. I think we started the game quite lively. You know, Eddie wanted a reaction. We wanted a reaction after the Liverpool game, which we were all totally gutted about. You can see Eddie was gutted about as well. We started quite lively in the first few minutes, didn't we? Isaac got through. Maybe should have done a bit better. And then obviously, look, we were kind of up for that, you know. And then just we just let Brighton get back into it. We took the pressure off them. They started to kind of slip into their game, which is a brilliant game. You know, De Zerbi's got them playing even better than Potter had them playing. You know, the way they move through the lines, the transitions they've got, the quick passing, the triangles they use, the movement. It's real quality. I mean, people are talking about Eddie Howe replacing Pep Guardiola if he buggers off of Man City. There's your man right there in De Zerbi, in my opinion. Whether or not he's sexy enough of a name for Man City, but that's your man right there to replace Pep. I think he's a sensational manager. And everybody seems to be wanting to adapt his style of play like we did when Klopp first came. It seems to be the De Zerbi way. I mean, you know, before I tear into the lads, I've kind of had a couple of days to relax a little bit, but I'm still pissed off about it. But I think I've started to see things a little bit clearer now. We have had the toughest start than any team, I believe, on paper. When you look at it, you know, you're talking about all the teams we've played are going to be there or thereabouts, aren't they? You know, in terms of the top kind of 5 or 6 teams in the league come the end of the season. It's a real horrible fixture list that Newcastle have had to go through. You know, we should have beat Liverpool. That's the big one that sickens you the most because you smashed Villa, which nobody expected. And I think we got a little bit carried away with ourselves after that Villa game. We thought we were going to dominate everybody and this and that. And then I think the City game was a reality check. City were kind of half pace and still beat us comfortably. But we were in that game for a long period of time. We just didn't have the quality to see it out in key positions, which we'll talk about in the transfer roundup as well. But, you know, the Liverpool game was the worst one, Marcus. For me, that casts a shadow of a doubt on Newcastle's big game mentality. This isn't the first time we've said this. Last season, we did the same thing against Liverpool in games with the Champions League coming in some big games there. Just before I get back into the Brighton game, that's a concern a little bit, isn't it? We can't manage ourselves in those big games, in those moments, to just maybe slow it down, to calm it down, to maybe reshape a little bit, to not get too carried away, to not try stupid passes, you know, just to kill the game a little bit for 10 minutes.
It's all about control, and this is in those games. There's been a real lack of it, and the decisions that were made in the Liverpool game, and we talked about this, or you talked about this last week. Just think that the decisions to then change personnel at the time that changed the game. Liverpool made the changes and they worked for them. Newcastle made the changes and it backfired spectacularly because Newcastle lost control. And I think a little bit of this is that after the first sort of few minutes, Newcastle lost control against Brighton. They did create a number of chances, and I mean, it could well have been a high-scoring draw at one point because there were, particularly for Isaac early on, there were a number of chances that he should be doing better with.
He should be burying them, shouldn't he, though, when he got through? You would have put, how's Isaac scoring that? Or at least getting on target?
Normally, I mean, you have an off day, don't you? So, but I don't think the first one, he almost looked cold. He wasn't. He wasn't
ready for it.
To be ready, you know, so early in the game. But it's just, I think everything else. And I think Eddie Howe's right in that sense. I think if you take one of those early chances, it changes the whole game. But that doesn't excuse what then happens. And for large parts of that game, you saw Newcastle players play with their heads down and looked beaten. And that's such a worrying trend this early against a team like that.
And not something we've seen in an Eddie Howe team
No,
for a long
not
time
at
now.
all.
Do you agree with that comment, just quickly, mate? Just a sidebar from Geordie Tuneful. Do you think that Howe changed his tactics a bit to try and stop the Serbi and it backfired? Do you think that was something that he did?
I think noticeable early on, they looked like they were really pushing to be high up the field and keep Brighton in their own third. And I thought that tactic looked like it worked well, but it's as soon as they scored, really, that stopped. And then that lack of control, that lack of retaining possession in good areas of the field, passes were astray. There was no cohesiveness in midfield. That midfield looked really disjointed on Saturday night. I mean, come to Joe Linton probably in a bit, but I just think he didn't look fit enough. I don't think Tonali and Bruno work particularly well at the moment. Nope. That will probably come, but it's still really early days for them. I agree with that, Jack. I do think that the Liverpool game knocked the stuffing out of them a little bit, but you want a reaction. You want a reaction from your players to something like that. And I know it's going to have an effect, but you want them to step up and go, no, we're gonna put right the wrongs of last week, and they just didn't.
Yeah. Well, player errors, as BT says there throughout the game, nothing to do with Eddie. I mean, in a way, you're right, BT, because Eddie sets the team up. I mean, we can talk about the players that he chose and criticize that, but I mean that Nick Pope, even Nick Pope. he looks like a Pole. Nick Pope on the first goal. I mean, certainly as an ex-keeper, mark yourself. That is abysmal. That there's a simple ball on to Trippier, or you just get it the fuck out of there. I don't know what he was doing. Yes, Tonali takes a little bit of blame, as you say, for the lazy leg and then not getting out to Gilmour, who I thought was brilliant, but we gave him all the space to play. And Gilmour is a very good little player. I think we underestimated him. Our midfield certainly did. But with Pope, the kick's a mistake. The save is terrible. The attempt at the save is terrible. And he just palms it out to Ferguson.
It's not even a save. It's a catch. All he has to do is catch the ball.
It's dreadful. There's no defence to that. We'll come on to Nick Pope in terms of transfers and everything else in a minute. But you wrote a piece a few weeks back, Mark, about Newcastle potentially having to evolve and get a keeper that's better with his feet. And I think that was a shining example.
I never actually put it out, but actually it's become more and more apparent. I wish I'd put it out when I did. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it was
That's a modern day keeper, isn't it? You got to use your feet. Is a modern day keeper.
It is, but even if you're not that goalkeeper, you're not an Alisson, an Edison, a Ramsdale, somebody like that is very, very good with their feet. You've still got to have the ability to at least get by. And it was always the slight put against Nick Pope when he signed was he's a good goalkeeper, but he can't use his feet to save his life. And there were stats that backed that up a little bit. There were stats that went the other way. You read stats as you want to. A lot of the time, they don't always make your point. But he came in and was, I'd argue, and I think I put in the piece, as an old-fashioned goalkeeper, I don't think there's a better goalkeeper in the league at that.
Shot stopper wise, no, I think his reactions are incredible, especially for the size of him.
Yeah, he's had his issues over recent games, but I think generally speaking, he's been exceptional. But it comes down, and there are two moments really to highlight from Nick Pope this season. One is the first goal against Brighton, because that clearance is absolutely shocking. The other one was the one against City. And I think it raises the time he goes to play the ball, and he has an option to either pass. He's got Haaland about 10 yards from him. He's under really no pressure when the ball's played through to him. He's got a pass to Share and a pass to Trippier on if he takes a touch, and he panics and lumps it. And he lumped it straight to Kyle Walker and immediately put Newcastle on the back foot again. Yeah. And that's his biggest weakness. And it is absolutely...
It's getting exploited.
Well, it is, because if you get him into an area where he is rushing out, and he does it a lot, so he will sweep an awful lot. But the problem you've got at that point is then he can't do anything with it. he hasn't got that range of passing to be able to ping one to the opposite side of whatever. But he does panic. So he's doing an awful lot of that rush now, but then he's panicking with the ball at his feet, and you just can't have that. And the other side to it is that you lose a player in the build-up of play. You watch City or you watch Liverpool, and there's always the outlet of going, well, we'll utilize the goalkeeper. He can then, take his time, pass out, pull the defenders wide, you make that pass, you make that angle. Newcastle players 99.9% of the time will ignore him. Because even when they're going that way, the ball will then get played to Trippier, will get played to the left side. They ignore the goalkeeper.
Yeah. And once you throw Hall in there and the ability for Hall to take the ball up, he'll become another option there. And that'll be one less attempt to go back to Pope. Just to talk about Gary's comment there, we will come on this, Gary. We've got a topic on the midfield in a minute, mate. So we will come on to that one there. But there's a comment there from Ian said he's fed up with all these YouTubers defending the indefensible. We don't do that, mate. As we say, we've been very honest with our opinion. Manager doesn't. Don't know who to start, who to bring on. Players can do 90 minutes. No need to bring subs on. I mean, this is the whole thing about Tonali, which we will get into in the midfield, Mark. But the weird thing is, just to touch on it now before we go into, I know you've got some in-depth information about it, but Tonali seems to be, out the three of them, playing better, certainly the last 3 games. Even though we've lost them, Tonali's definitely put in the better shift, and he's been hooked every single time. And because Bruno is nowhere near the Bruno that we know, that we love and we expect. He's miles off the pace. He looks out of shape. He looks a yard behind the play. His passes aren't going to anybody. I made a comment, I think, certainly the Liverpool game, even a couple of weeks ago, where's Louis Miley? Where's an alternative to Bruno on the bench? Somebody who can come on and use the ball and control the play, dictate the play, find those passes, be smart with it, and even sit back and protect the back four, which Miley can do. We saw him do it in pre-season and do it very well. But there doesn't seem to be any other option off the bench other than Sean to do that job that Bruno can do. My issue between the two of them, before we get into more in-depth, I knew it was going to go this way, but before we get into the in-depth details about them, the two of them are almost hybrid midfielders that can be an 8 or a 6. But when they're playing together, not one of them has the discipline to be the 6 and stay the 6. They're wandering off in a different part of the midfield. And it's just not working, Mark. We're getting left exposed, aren't we?
Yeah, I think Sean is a massive miss on the right-hand side of that midfield trio. His work rate is unmatched, really, in that side. And I think that in everything, that frees up Bruno to be Bruno. And I think that's missing. Weirdly, you talked about passes not going anywhere. His pass percentage this season is higher than it was for last season.
This Bruno's,
it's sat at 87.5%. Well, his total for last season was 83.15. Now, it's 4 games, so it's. I'm not going to read too much into that. But the interesting part of what I picked up from some of his stats were less of his passes are going forward. Now, we've looked before at his passing diagrams, or certainly Newcastle's passing diagrams, you see that central hub of Newcastle's passing diagram where it's Bruno in the middle. I'm not going to start singing. Everything flows through him.
He doesn't know what to do at the minute. He doesn't know what to do. So you can sing the song if you want. So,
but everything flowed through him. Absolutely everything. It didn't matter where. The bulk of passes went through Bruno. That slightly changed this season, and he sits. If you look at those maps, he sits slightly deeper. I'll try and I'll just bring this up because if I can share the screen.
Just while you're doing that, Jody Toon for Live say once opposition gets past our press, our midfield is more or less a straight line, and a 10-yard pass along the floor to a number 10 in the hole just basically does our defense. I agree with that. Number 10s we cannot pick up, and that's the absence of the 6, I think, that doesn't pick up the number 10, because the 6 is the player that does that.
Absolutely right. So this is Bruno's heat map for last season. I mean, he's absolutely all over the place.
Yeah.
Again, it's really early doors, but the bulk of his heat on that heat map is much deeper. There's bits further forward, but it's not as evenly spaced. Now you can argue, and it would be a fine argument to make. The 3 teams that you've just played Manchester City, Liverpool, and Brighton. So you'd almost expect that. But as a general rule, that's where it sits. Now, the interesting thing I've kind of pulled up from this was just the comparison between him and Sandro Tonali. So that's Bruno's from last season. Tonali's for last season is almost identical, but he's played his bulk of his games at club level as a 2 in that midfield. Whether he's played as Milan played a 4-2-3-1 much of the time, and his partner in that is Krunic, who has again a very, very similar sort of heat map, but it's sort of the more deeper of the 2, but plays as a 2. He's not getting as far forward. You're not asking Tonali, or they weren't asking Tonali to play one side. If you look at Sean's is very right-sided.
Yeah.
But the difference,
which covers for Trippier, as you rightly say, he covers
exactly right. So that was what I was going to come to. So in that regard, when you look at it, when Trippier does get forward, Sean can then come and sit a little bit deeper and cover that side. So you're not getting that from Tonali at the moment. And I stress that at the moment because I just think had Sean been fit, I think Sean would have started the season. And I don't think he would have seen Tonali start as good as he was against Villa. Yeah. And I thought it was very good. That's an odd game to take. But when you look at the other 3, that trio of Joe Linton, him, and Bruno just hasn't quite clicked yet. And I think had Eddie had the chance, he would have started with the 3 that would normally have started last season, then brought Tonali in gradually. It's kind of what I said before the season started. It's purely based on the fact that Sean wasn't fit enough to play, that he's the one being dripped back in.
Yeah, I think it's a huge blow as well about Willock being injured. Is a massive blow for us because Willock gives us something that these guys don't. He gets you up the field. And in a game like Brighton where we were pinned in, I think Willock would have been great. But just that comment from Paul McCarthy there, I do think Miley could be a genuine number 6. I think he's young enough to adapt into that role. I think he's so good on the ball and he's so controlled and he's big as well. He's strong with tackle. For what we saw of him, I think he would be perfect to sit as that deep, almost that deep quarterback style. But I think he's that good at sniffing out danger, and his positioning sense looked that good from the bits we saw of him in pre-season. Yes, I know it's pre-season. I think you could maybe grooming's the wrong word for a 17-year-old lad, but I think
we'll go that far.
Yeah, maybe don't use that word. You could coach him along to be a number 6. I think, Mark. What do you think? Out of all the midfielders that are in the mix right now in the squad.
Do you know one of the lads I worked with today said it was an interesting fact, and I'm not going to compare the 2 at all because the 2 midfielders are the 2 players are very.
I know where
you're
going here. Is it Mr. Carrick you're talking about? By any
no,
chance? No,
John Joe.
Oh God, I think he's better than John Joe.
He is absolutely right, and I'm not going to compare the 2. But look at the job John Joe did first season. Bruno came into the side.
True, he sat deep a bit.
He sat in that 6 role, and
that's because his legs were gone, though. Really, I think more than anything, it was more natural consequence.
But it allowed Bruno to play that more forward sort of facing 8 role that he does so well. He got forward, he scored more goals, he created more chances. Playing somebody like Miley in there to be that, Carrick's a good example as well.
I think so. There's a lot of similarities between them in terms of the way they use the ball in a positional sense.
Yeah, and just protect the back 4. Sitting in the gap. If you have a 6. Ferguson doesn't score that second goal. I'm absolutely convinced 100%. That
because he goes out and blocks
somebody a lot close to him. He had 10 yards around him.
Yeah,
for that goal. There's just nobody picked him up. What the defenders are doing, I don't know. But if you have a 6 in that hole, you go back to. I know you mentioned this last season. You go back to last season against City. Was it City's second goal? Doesn't happen because Haaland runs through that gap.
That's exactly.
Or De Bruyne runs through that gap.
Yeah, it's De Bruyne gets the ball through to Haaland, and the 6 goes out and pushes De Bruyne and pressures him. But Paul's saying there, we need a proper DM. Longstaff ain't the answer in his opinion. But we are going to talk about some transfers that we maybe missed out on in a bit. As John says there's some good players he's mentioned there, Edison Alvarez and maybe Diaby as well. We'll get into that in the transfer maybe. But go on, Mark, you were just saying about Sean, about DM. Are you disagreeing with that?
No, I don't necessarily disagree with him in that because I don't think Sean's a DM. I don't think he is a true 6. But I definitely think that's a miss. and look at all the top level managers, the likes of Pep. You throw Klopp into there, and every other one. What do they all play? What have they all covered? Is it DM? There's a reason why Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo have gone for 100 million. I don't agree with the fee, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why bringing in somebody like Casemiro changed Manchester United last season. Obviously, Rice changes the face of Arsenal this season. Rodri and others go back. Fernandinho, those sorts of players were exceptional
players like that,
for Manchester City. Kante for Chelsea, Makelele for Chelsea. There's a reason why those players work so well, and it absolutely baffles us that Newcastle didn't go for one. And I know we're going to come on to transfers, and we'll get to that kind of bit, but it just baffles that they've spent so much money on really 3 positions that didn't need immediately filling.
Yeah.
And not spend it on the areas that were actually of more, not desperate need, but of much more of a need in the squad.
Yeah, to be fair, it is something I think that's maybe not been what's the right word? It's maybe the right transfers at the wrong time potentially is an easy way to summarize it. But Stu's saying there that there's no evidence that he wants a defensive-minded number 6. He wants a technician as number 6. Well, that's going to be Miley and all, in my opinion, Stu. Out of the squad that we've got, I think there's a kid there you could mould into that position. I really do believe that. There's obviously a reason that he's not got him in the squad. We don't know what that is. But, the journalists are going to start asking some questions soon. Ian saying the negativity isn't warranted. It's entirely over the top. I mean, we try not to be too negative, Ian, but I think when you're losing 3 games on the spin and you lose like you did at the weekend with massive holes in the squad, massive holes in the tactics as well, no apparent plan B, I think you, as a fan, Ian, it's your God-given right to be critical of that. You have to look at that 3rd game on the spin. Yes, 3 very different games. City is City. We hung in that game for a long time. We could have got something out of it. Liverpool were totally threw that away. We took our foot off their throat. We let them in. That was a massive, massive error by the lads and Eddie. And then this game was just so disappointing because Brighton are a really good side, Mark, but they didn't have to be that good to beat us. It was easy for them, really. I just don't think we really put up much of a fight.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You can be critical of performances. You can be critical of a game. I think Ian's right in a sense that there is. I think there's an overriding sense of negativity from a lot of people. Some of the stuff I've seen is absolutely ridiculous. The calls for Eddie stuff are just
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
You can, as a fan, you pay your money, you watch your games, all of that. You've got a voice. You're allowed to use it. You can say yes. I think this player hasn't played well, or this isn't working, or realistically, nobody's going to listen to it.
No,
from the club, they're not. We're not. Do you know what I mean? But it's an opinion. When if you don't think something's right, you're allowed to say it. If you don't agree, that's absolutely fine. We're not gonna haul you over the coals for not agreeing with what we say. In fact, we actually like it because it creates debate. It's what football's about. It's supposed to create that sort of debate. What we can't debate, and we're coming out with 2 and stuff, that offside for City. That's not debatable.
Even Haaland didn't agree with that one, mate. To be fair, but yeah. But as we say, it was a tough day at the office for us. I mean, they finished the game off again. Ferguson's kind of 3rd goal, very similar to the second. No one seems to close him down. Like you say, knocks off Shaw and goes in. And then, we do pull back. When we brought on Callum Wilson and Isak went to the left, he looked a bit sharp, a bit more lively. I thought we had a chance to get back in it. And then he hooks Isak off, which was weird. Then obviously we go back to, I think Barnes is on, and we just don't quite have the same vigour. But there was one good bit about the game, Mark, which was this. Now, Callum Wilson scored his 40th Premier League goal for Newcastle United, and you can see there he's really, really close to beating some serious legends of Newcastle United in terms of Premier League goal scoring exploits. So fair play to Callum, mate. I mean, he's got a good chance of beating certainly Andy Cole and even Beardsley, I think, this season. And he's got a little bit to go to catch a certain Mr. Shearer, though.
I'm not sure he's got enough in his legs to get to Shearer's level. He's going to have a couple of really decent seasons. But yeah, I think he will comfortably get above Beardsley now. I think he'll have enough games over the next season to get eight more. So yeah, I mean that's that's a nice positive to end that game in.
Absolutely. And to be fair, he looked sharp, I thought, as well, Callum, when he come on.
Yeah.
I thought he looked sharp. I think there could be grounds to maybe start him and Isak together and push Isak out to that left-hand side, or maybe even try the both of them up front. I mean, that was something else that's come off of a lot of channels and a lot of people talking after the game. And obviously after a defeat, your emotions are high, you're raw. I was raging in the post-matches, you all saw. But we don't seem to have a plan B. We stick religiously to this 4-3-3. And then all we do is we just change the personnel, but we keep the same tactics. So if that 4-3-3 has been nullified by, a good manager and the opposition team that's out coaching it, if you take off Isak and put Barnes on or whatever, or Gordon and somebody else, it's the same tactics and it's the same formation. It's just a different player. Yes, those players' legs are a bit fresher, but they might just have the same result against that team because they're sitting in and they're dealing with a 4-3-3. So I do think that this international break will be good for Eddie. I know he said he wanted another game straight after, but I do think this break will be good for Mark to try and maybe him and Tyndall to sit down and have a look at things and maybe see where they're going to change. Can you envisage this team being unchanged for the Brentford game? I personally can't. I think he has to make changes.
I think the talk will be that Botman will be fit. I know he put out that Instagram post to say that he would back soon. I think his estimated date for being back is the next game, so that would be it.
Yeah,
that would be a good one. I think
it's a good shout by John as well. It's a good shout by John. Isak left, Gordon right, Wilson in the middle. It's not a bad shout,
Possibly. I mean, he looked much more dangerous when he moved left, and you're right. I was completely bamboozled when he came off, because I thought he just started to look a lot more dangerous getting at the Brighton right back. And we know how good Isak can be on that left-hand side. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that. I think you can pressure Brentford into mistakes by getting onto them. Rico Henry will push forward. So I think getting somebody on the right-hand side to really keep them pegged back is one. They've got, is it Aaron Hickey who's playing at right back at the moment as well. So somebody like Isak, I think would work very, very well against him as well. He could give him nightmares. And a good, obviously with Wilson in the middle to put chances away again. I think he probably has played himself into having that opportunity to start. I would probably make those changes, but it all depends on what happens over the next couple of weeks. I can't see there being, unless there's fitness issues, I can't see there being too many more changes, maybe left back. I think we'll see going forward.
I can see Lewis Hall coming in. I really do think that. I think he's such a good player, and I don't think Eddie would have pushed. I think that's an Eddie Howe signing Lewis Hall. I really believe that, because I think Eddie made the point of saying that they watched him when we played Chelsea, and if anybody remembers that game, he was head and shoulders the best player for Chelsea at St James's Park. He was everywhere. He was spraying passes around. He was dropping shoulders. He was beating people. He was stripping people for pace, putting balls across the box. The only thing for him was nobody from Chelsea even like they were anywhere near getting on the end of them. So for a player like that to have left that kind of impression on Eddie Howe, and him going, yeah, I like that lad. We need a left back. He could be the lad. And then he finds out he's a Toon fan and his family have got Newcastle links, and he's probably thinking, hang on a minute, this could be a real one. So I think Lewis Hall will get in this team, regardless of his age mark. I think at 18, I think he gets in this 11. I really do, based on what we've seen thus far.
Yeah,
left back.
The other thing to consider on that side of the field as well is who plays on the right hand side or plays mainly on that right hand side for Brentford. And Burmo, I can't even speak.
It's late. It's been a long day.
Coffee today. And Burmo is so much pace and will cut in off that right hand side.
Torture burn.
If they go, I mean, they can go one of two ways really. They've started with 5 at the back when they've played Collins, Ayer, and for the life Pinnock, or they've gone 2 at the back, in which case they've then played that Kevin Sade up down the left and Mbumo down the right with Johan Visser through the middle. If they play a 2, generally speaking, Visser will be the one through the middle and Mbumo will pull right, and he pulls wide right as well, and he has so much pace, and we've seen that trouble burn. So I wouldn't be surprised if he brought up hauling for that job.
Yeah, Jules is saying he wouldn't want to see Botman back for Brentford too soon. We need him later on. I understand that, especially the Champions League brewing soon. I mean, to be honest with you, this might sound crazy, right? But after watching Burn get nailed against Ferguson, and just he looks so slow at centre half. He looks so exposed because he's not got Joe Linton covering him or Joe Willett covering him, so he looks totally exposed. I would rather see Alex Murphy in there, to be honest with you, from what we saw in pre-season. I know Lascelles might come in, and again, more on Lascelles in a minute, the transfer window, but it might be better off playing Lascelles now. He's got a little bit more speed. I know you're playing with two right-sided centre-halves, but my worry about Bernard centre-half, Mark, is he's been left back for so long. He's been so protected. You put him at centre-half, he just looks exposed, man. It really does.
It is a weird one, isn't it? Because he's played centre back an awful lot in his career, but I think you're absolutely right. I think he's played left back for so long. You've got to then readjust to play in a different position, and he's had that almost comfort of playing on the left hand side for that long and being protected by the fact that he's got others behind him. That then when he's moved into the centre, it is a completely different ball game for him. So that there is an element of that. I don't think there was an awful lot else he could do. There was the argument to play Lascelles, if he's available for the weekend. But I think the natural thing to have done at that point was to just shift him in and bring in a left back. But it didn't look right. I mean, massive miss in Botman. I think. Look, if he's fit, you play him. If he's fully fit, you play him. If he's not fully fit, you don't risk him.
Yeah, but like Joe Linton, isn't it? Well, I mean, I suppose bringing Lascelles in would have certainly added a bit of fight to the back four. Sorry, I couldn't resist it.
Boom.
Got another comment there from Steve saying Bruno needs to drop, but will Howe do it? That's the big question, Steve. Huge question for Eddie Howe. He's got some big decisions to make. That is one of them. Even in the weekend, though, good to see you, mate. Dean is saying Barnes left, Gordon right, and either Wilson or Isak in the middle. I nearly morphed him then, called him Weezak for some reason there, Dean. So I just stopped myself. Weezak. I like that. It's a good name for a striker. But yeah, I think there's some huge decisions he has to make there. That's a hell of a one there, George. Number 10, Anderson. I mean, Anderson's so flexible as a player, versatile. He can play in that midfield three. He's not scared of a tackle. We saw that in pre-season. He goes flying into challenges. And even the Premier League games that he's had, he can play in that front three. For me, Mark, and we haven't really touched on it too much. Thank you very much, John Kitchen. Yes, smash a like, please, everybody. I just caught that recording on my eye. Thanks, John. Keep me right. Miggy's got away from this quite lightly with us, actually, apart from me giving him shit at the start. Miggy Almiron 100% needs to be on the bench. And I look at that squad, and I look at Isak that can play left. I look at Gordon, who's played really well. I look at Harvey Barnes, who's had good cameos. I look at Elliot Anderson that can offer something. I look at even Jacob Murphy, who has improved as a player. It can offer some end product as well. And I'm looking at Miggy thinking, how the fuck are you still getting in this team? Because he's for 70 minutes or 80 minutes a game, he's shooting with his slippers on. And then he'll pull out a worldy strike from 30 yards that a world-class goalkeeper has to tip onto the bar. And everybody dines on that rather than how shit he's been for 70, 80 minutes. I mean, he's not offering a great deal, Mark, is the end product-wise?
No. And the weird thing that gets me as well from this is that how well did Jacob Murphy finish last season? He's played 5 minutes.
Brilliant.
He's played 5 minutes this season. It's a baffling one because we said, and I think it was our piece during last week, when you looked at the substitutions for the first 3 games, they were almost identical. I mean, you may as well just cut and paste them for each game. It was very, very predictable. There was no change. Even when, and it's a difficult one, but even when Bruno's not played well, there seems no indication that they're likely to bring him off and give him a little bit of a kick to kind of, come on, you need to up your game a little bit. But Murphy's not one because he will give you all that energy as well that Mickey will give you. But he has form on his side or had form on his side. And it just seems weird that he's not been utilised at all.
A bit more. I think there's a loyalty to Miggy because of the great season. I mean, let's be honest, we wouldn't be Champions League if it wasn't for Miggy Almiron. We've got to give him that.
Absolutely. He was sensational last season.
Yeah, but I think there's almost a bit of must have been a loyalty from Howe, I think. I'm just looking at Ian's comment there, saying Howe has suddenly gone from telling me, Mark, I would have hate in 3 months. But George's comment is bang on, Ian. I think it's not hate, it's frustration, I think, because we know that the team is capable of so much more. Yeah, and maybe our expectations have gone up a little bit at this side and these players after last season. Maybe we're expecting more from, likes of Bruno, likes of Joe Linton, likes of Burn. Maybe we're putting too much on them. Maybe we're expecting too much, because last season was certainly for likes of Miggy Almiron. I don't think, and I said this a few weeks ago, didn't I? I don't think Miggy will ever have a season as good as that in his whole career. I think last season was a bit of a freak occurrence for Miggy. I think he runs hard. There's no doubt. His work rate is off the charts, right? But he doesn't have enough end product. He's not clinical enough. But last season, something just seemed a click mark, didn't it? And he was getting them goals, and he was setting those goals up. But the normal Mickey Almiron we see, it's almost like his brain's faster than his body, or vice versa. He can't quite execute the final ball, can he? I think we're starting to see a bit more of that again this season.
It is frustrating. I think, going back to kind of Ian's point, that has there been an overreaction to an awful lot of it? Possibly. I'd say that, yeah, it's 4 games in. It's 3 very, very good teams in it, and an exceptionally poor Villa side, or exceptionally poor performance from a Villa side first game of the season. Although that first half was pretty tight. Time will tell. I think the next run of games will be the tell. When you come up against the likes of Brentford and that, and then get into the Champions League, if just where this season will go to. So that we can react to what's gone on so far. We can't tell the future, but it's one of those where there are things that don't look quite right at the moment. So we'll talk about them. It's not from a place of hate at all, because you're right. Those players deserve the chance. I think Miggy absolutely deserved the chance to start the season, and deserves a little bit of loyalty, because at the end of the day, look at how well he performed last season. But I think you're right to question some of the performances, because I just think some of them just haven't been at that level. Yeah. And is there a question mark of, is there too much being expected just at the moment? But you want to see at least the same level of application, and at the same level of performance that they've given the previous season and a half.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to see a drop off.
No, because with football is that kind of a game. That's the price on the ticket. Eddie Howe knows it. The players know it. That when you raise the bar and you have a great season and you finish 4th, right? Fans don't go back to thinking about when you were a mid-table side that finished 13th or 12th. They go into their mind, right? We finished 4th last season. These lads stepped up, they evolved, they become better players. They're expecting another good performance from you next season. They might not be expecting you to finish 4th. But when you look at the games that we've been in, as Ian says here, fine margins. I think if we beat Liverpool, which I love that, as always, right, we'd be flying. And I totally agree with you, Ian. I think you're bang on, mate. If we beat them in that game, and we deserve to beat them, because I thought we were better than they were. We just failed at the big game management, which concerns me for Champions League, which we'll come on to, I'm sure, nearer the time. As for the midfield, he says they were awesome unit until the Liverpool collapse. Keep the faith. I mean, the thing about Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali is individually, and Eddie Howe said this in his post-match for Brighton, they are brilliant players individually. Once you can figure out how to get them together, which I think Kendo said there as well, didn't he, in the comment there? I'm just trying to pull it up, Kendo. Bear with us, mate. There's loads of comments here. Here we go. He's saying, once Bruno, Tonali work out their role, pivot, we will have a well-oiled central midfield. And I totally agree, Kendo. I think individually as players, Mark, they offer something special to any side. Joe Linton definitely looks off the pace as well. We can't let Joe off. He doesn't look right. He looks knackered. He looks like he's carrying something. But I think Joe is such a determined player that he has to be part of the team, and that's why he declared himself fit when he definitely wasn't. But Eddie's got to manage that and say, no, you can't. You're not fit. You're not playing. You're on the bench. He's got to give Elliot Anderson a go or something like that, or Sean, hasn't he, mate? You can't just let Joe come in a team half fit, because you don't get the same output from him.
No, I think what you saw, I mean, I thought Joe Linton was exceptional against Liverpool. I thought he bossed that up. I mean, he did look, he didn't look right against Brighton at all.
So I just laughed at that Weezak. I think Weezak is what John Joe Shelby did, Jules, when he ran about 10 yards, I think, in the game. That he was Weezakking all over the place. Sorry, Mark, I threw you off there.
No, I don't think he looked right. I think if there's any question mark of fitness, you shouldn't be played. But look, if the doctors, if he's declared himself fit, certainly if independently the doctors have said he's fine to play, then you can't question it. But he just didn't. He didn't look himself. But look, I think we'll get too bogged down in it really. But it's you have to move on, and there are big games coming up. And I think the next one being Brighton in a couple of weeks' time, Brentford in a couple of weeks' time, that's got to be now the bounce back. That has to be everybody back, everybody fit, everybody raring to go, and put in a performance now to tick the season back into gear again, because you started like an absolute house on fire.
Yeah.
And then it's been elements of frustration and just that last 10 minutes against Liverpool, utter disappointment, and then horror really against Brighton. But not to get too stuck on it and go back to a little bit of Ian's comments. 4 games. Let's not panic, as I've brought in before. Let's not panic.
You're showing your age there, mate. Showing your age, putting Dad's army up you. Honestly, you're terrible.
But we've said it's right to question. It's right to say, look, there are performances that haven't been right. But the overriding sort of thing from it is 4 games. There are still 34 to go in this season, plus all the cup games, the Champions League games. It could turn a corner really, really quickly.
Listen, Stuart Pearce still thinks we're going to win the league, apparently. So fucking good on you, Pearce. Yeah, absolutely. Stephen, just one last comment on this. Stephen saying, don't expect too much to assume we are building the impossible Champions League, but miracles take a bit longer. Championship DNA still not squad 100%. You know, likes of Dummett and Richie still around there, taking up squad spaces. That tells you everything there. So moving on to the next section, Mark. We kind of covered the midfield one already, so we won't get into that. But we're going to talk about the transfer window roundup. So obviously the transfer window closed. For everybody who didn't know who was signed, with the magic of YouTube, ta-da! There we go. That is our transfer window there. It didn't take long to pull that one up, but we're going to go through these players individually, Mark, and talk about them as signings, and then we'll obviously talk about maybe some holes that were missing in the squad. And we'll pull up some comments as we go. So I'm going to kick this off, right? Harvey Barnes coming in on the left-hand side. Maddison was heavily linked for a long time in terms of that Leicester player. Didn't quite come off, ended up going to Spurs. People were talking about was the weekly wage was the problem. Harvey Barnes is a very, very good footballer. We talked about his stats on Rumour Has It and in the lead up to this transfer. Maxi obviously went over to Saudi. When things go wrong, everyone starts saying, why isn't Maxi still here, etc., etc. But Harvey Barnes, Premier League proven player. I think only Rashford has scored more goals than him over the last couple of seasons, I think. Harvey Barnes is a signing, mate. How would you rate it? You think it was a good signing to bring in?
Yes, and I was kind of in that camp of saying it was a good sign at the time. But when you look, and it's easy with hindsight, but when you look at the overall and you think you've bought in 2, and I'm going to go on to the 2 ones at the bottom as well. But you spent 100 million.
You're just going straight in. We're not doing one at a time. You're just going straight in. Ruining my strategy there. You go on.
100 million on 3 players that there were players in the squad already, and there wasn't much depth, but there was depth. But there were areas that were, I think, of much more of a concern. It's that centre back post, that number 6, particularly right side of midfield. Look, I think Barnes will be great. I have no doubt he will score you goals. He's done that every season really for Leicester. I think he probably needs to get into the starting lineup now, and I think swapping Gordon across to the other side is the way to go. But I think that's a good solid signing. He's young to get you a good few years out of him as this project develops as well. So, and it's that Premier League proven quality that is, for some of the players that were knocking around, that he's lacking. So I think will be a good sign, absolutely.
So here's one, and again with this one, I mean, we spend big money on Barnes. Was it 30 million? I think it was 30 million, 38 million or something.
About 35, 38 million.
30,
Yeah.
35 million. So Moussa Diaby went to Villa for, was it 50 million? I think it was
50.
Remember,
Was it
50?
53, 54,
53.
something around that.
And Maddison goes for 40. Now, Maddison's probably the one that was closer to our budget, I think, for the FFP threshold. Diaby's maybe a little bit over, but you see them two smashing in loads of goals and assists. I mean, Maddison looks unbelievable already. Diaby looks fantastic. Should Newcastle have maybe dug a little bit deeper and went for one of those players, or were those players just simply not anyhow players?
Well, I think Maddison was all about the wage offer, wasn't it? Newcastle weren't going to break their wage structure to bring Maddison in, and that ultimately became the deciding factor. I think he would have been excited. He showed already for Spurs this season just what a good player he is. I mean, Spurs haven't missed a beat, and they don't look like they're missing Harry Kane at all.
That's right, though. They haven't played anybody yet, though, mate, really. They haven't really played anybody. Let's be honest with you. The fixtures have been kind. All this talk about we don't need Kane. Wait till they're playing the big teams and getting fucking battered. Then we'll see what that means.
But you can only play what's in front of you. And he's done well in the game so far. So look, we know how good he can be anyway. But does he, if the continued thing is to play this sort of rigid 4-3-3 or move around, he probably doesn't suit as much as you probably would have wanted him to come in. And I know you were a big advocate of him coming in. Yeah, but he doesn't really fit. He is more of a 10. He will drift and he will play a little bit wider at times, but ultimately he plays more centrally. And Newcastle just don't have that. They don't play with that sort of player. Now, whether Newcastle will develop that in the future and become a little bit more sort of two-sided than that, whether they play the 4-3-3 or maybe play to a 4-2-3-1 or something along those lines, he'd suit in that role. But the way Newcastle is set up, I don't think it particularly suits his style at the moment. Diaby is a different one because Diaby can pretty much play anywhere across that front three.
I think he would have been perfect to replace Miguel on that starting 11. Personally, I think I would have went for 50 million for him. We'll get on to Livramento in a minute, but I would have rather have spent 50 million quid on Moussa Diaby than 30 million quid on a backup right back who may never play. That's my personal opinion.
There's that argument, but I mean, Diaby has played the majority of his time so far playing almost as a 10. Again, he's played more centrally. He will drift right and left. He played wide for Leverkusen, but ultimately will play through the centre. We will score goals. We've seen that for him for Villa. He's got a great finish on him. He's good running with the ball as well at plays. He will move quickly, gets into those little gaps, looking for the position, almost like Ferguson at the weekend. He finds that hole in front of the defence and then can create or score from there. I think my argument was before, I think when you look at the fact that you've got Target, you've got Burn, you've got Manquillo, you've got Trippier, were Livramento and Hall absolutely needed? I think Newcastle have added depth in the squad. I just don't think they haven't increased the quality of the first team yet to a point where others have maybe taken that step forward.
I agree with that. I think the starting 11, personally for me, I think Hall was needed. We need a left back. I think Hall represents a great bit of business there for me, and I think for the future as well, not just for the present. Obviously, they've got him on loan, an obligation to buy. If it went completely shit and he didn't play, which I don't think he will, because I think he's a very talented footballer, we could really have England's future left back for years to come playing. And I know people have said that about Livramento, but the Livramento one for me is weird because it almost smells of a Dan Ashworth signing rather than an Eddie Howe signing. I know some people have insinuated that Eddie wanted different players. And when you saw Eddie get interviewed, and somebody said, he's still, I think it was Keith Downey said he's still active in the transfer market. And he said, no, he went, unfortunately. And he gave like a little half smile. So I don't think Eddie's fully happy with what business was done. just to kind of cover the key areas, Mark. We've talked about Tonali and obviously the issues there, a smashing player, but really the players that were needed. Forget Miggy's replacement for a minute, if you will. If you're going to keep the faith with Miggy, which obviously there were, the number 6 was vital. Tonali's not number 6, so it didn't sign the player for that position there, and a backup centre half in case Botman or Shaw gets injured, or shares his initial replacement. We haven't got either of those players. So is that a mistake by the club? Do you think I have to hold their hands up and admit that was a mistake?
I think they missed a trick. I'm not gonna say they haven't. I do think they've missed a trick with this. I do think that there were elements to that sort of areas in that squad that they should have been. Maybe they did and they couldn't, and we don't know that. But I do think they've missed particularly those 2 areas, that defensive midfield and the centre back one in particular. And we know this is a project. We know that it's going to be long term. I think Livramento will become the right back going forward. He will be the ultimate successor to Kieran Trippier. But was it desperate?
Was it essential now?
Was it
essential now?
It might be the case if they signed him at the price now, because in a year's time he could be 80 million. So getting him in now is the best bit of business. I think ultimately we'll see that make more sense in a year's time. If touch wood, God forbid, Trippier goes down with an injury, you've got a ready-made replacement in there for him. So
then we'll all eat our words, because if he turns out to be a fantastic right back, we'll all eat our words. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. Just a quick one on Kendo, Mark. Your player of the season, Gordon for me, hands down. Anthony Gordon so far, player of the season. I think he's been brilliant.
Can't disagree with that. I really can't. I struggled to pick out anybody else, but his performance, particularly against Liverpool, and I thought he started really well against Brighton. I thought he looked bright, but there's not an awful lot else to choose from at the moment. But it's 4 games. This is it. As Ian put in earlier a couple of times, it is 4 games into the season. So
and 4 hard games. Well, thank you very much, Lee. Yes, smash the like for us, guys, if you can. We've got loads of you in the chat here, and we've got, I think, 81 of you watching along live. So smash that like in there. But I do think we did miss a trick. There were some good players in there. People mentioned before Edison Alvarez going to West Ham. He looks good. I think he'd have been a really good number 6 for us. We mentioned Diaby, we mentioned Maddison. There's been some good players being signed, for sides. But some of the bigger names we were linked to, Todibo didn't go anywhere. Antonio Silva didn't go anywhere. Marcus Guy, Palace didn't go anywhere. Joachim Anderson didn't go anywhere. So all these centre halves we were linked to didn't go anywhere. So that tells you that no other club did deals for them. But I think certainly that number 6 role, that there is players that we could have got there. I mean, the only way around this to really fucking wind everybody up is to give us Kante on loan in January, which would be absolutely superb from the Saudi League. Just to watch the bedwetters piss the bed would be utterly sensational. Just a quickie on this, Mark. We pulled this up. Free transfers. So these are all free transfers right now. So even though the window's closed, you can still do free transfers, free agents. And there's a name at the top of that jumps out to me straight away, given our goalkeeping issues. David De Gea. Would Newcastle fancy a little punt at that and a free?
His wages would be astronomical. I think he's been offered a massive contract with them in Saudi as well. So I couldn't see that.
That's like a Saudi 11, that though, isn't it? If you look at it, it's
pretty
like
much
a Saudi 11.
I'm not sure they'll take to Alfredo Morelos very well, but
maybe not.
He's got some players on that list.
He's signed for Santos today, Morelos. He's gone over to the Brazilian league.
Has he? There we go.
Yes, I saw that pop up before.
But yeah, I mean, the interesting one the other day that came up was obviously Casper being released by Nice.
Yeah, I like Casper, a good backup keeper as well, to be fair.
Would he be a better option? I mean, Dubravka's obviously going to be here for the season. I know there were lots of calls for Dubravka to get the starting place again. Would he be a better option? I mean, he's knocking on possibly a little bit now, Casper, isn't he?
European experience as well. European experience.
There's not an awful lot in that list to make you excited about it, isn't there? There's a reason why. There's a reason why they're still free agents.
That's the reason I know he's got. Jay Devlin says Casper's had an awful rep at Nice. I thought, that's not gone very well. That, I mean, what is it? 37. Roger's saying. I think he is quite an age, Casper Schmeichel. I mean, he was never as good as his dad, was he? To be fair, like, but so we got John Kitchen saying he was just about to go and get David De Gea for his Evermore fantasy team, Mark. So yeah, he just he thinks we're giving him the ITK there, really, honestly. But I mean, there's nobody really there that stands out. I mean, is it Stefan? Is it Jovetic at the bottom there as a striker, isn't he? So he might be, I suppose, somebody could get you a goal or two. But I mean, if you look at what we've got across that attack and berth, we play with speed and movement and pace, and I don't think he's got that in his locker at all. Certainly not anymore. There's nobody really on there that jumps out, as you say, Mark. You know.
To be honest with you, the only one I'm looking at is Tuanzebe, and he's not great, but he would give you depth at centre back.
He'd give us something else. Yeah, maybe somebody with a little bit more speed than Byrne, you know, possibly, mate. But I mean, there was another one on the transfer link. This came out in the transfer link. I think it popped up on earlier on X, and I think Roger mentioned it in the comments there. So this is the Saudi Pro League transfer to close at the end of this week, and apparently Jamal Lascelles has been earmarked as a late transfer target for is it Al Shabab. Would you be happy to let Lascelles leave? I can't see it, given the fact that we're a bit threadbare at the back. The only way I could see that happening is if Emil Kraft is back fit, and he's not, is he?
No, he's. I mean, they're talking about October, end of October for Kraft being ready, along with Willock as well. That's such a frustrating one. Willock
long time away, isn't it? Yeah,
for an extra 6 weeks or so. So I can't see them sanctioning it unless there's a fee involved that then allows them to go. But it doesn't leave an awful lot of options if Botman or Cher were to go down again with an injury. That would worry you massively.
And the Carabao Cup games and stuff like that, where are you going to get the depth from there? Yeah, I can't see it happening, mate. I really can't. I think it's just a bit of paper talk, really. But I mean, it will be interesting. I mean, I do think it's funny because all this kind of these top quality players in the Saudi league, obviously, I mean, let's be honest with you, half of it's exhibition football. You watch the highlights. I mean, I think Jordan Henderson hit a 70-yard pass totally unchallenged to somebody the other day and scored. It was a really good finish, but when you were watching it, it was literally like fucking Soccer Aid or something, you know. I was thinking, this is just shit. This, like, you know, how sick are these players going to get in terms of just playing completely shit football with no effort? And come January, if we are fucked, and we do need players in key positions, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, Mark. Ruben Neves on loan or something like that, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Miguel Delaney.
I love it, mate. Honestly, I would be on here. My thought of the day would just be me laughing at pictures of Miguel Delaney crying and Oliver Holt as well. I think it just to fucking watch their heads explode live on Sky Sports would be immense.
I think that would just become the best spectator sport of the season. Just watching the meltdown on his Twitter or X timeline would just be phenomenal. I really now, amongst everything else, I really hope that happens just to see the fallout from it, because I think that would be
Benzema, Kante, and Maxi back on loan. Fucking just to watch their heads explode, maybe absolutely superb. Yeah, Stephen, I can't believe Henderson's in the England squad. I've already had my rant about that one, mate. He just absolutely. He shouldn't have been anywhere near that, mate. The amount of young midfielders that are available there is ridiculous. But we're going to move on to the last section of the show, Out of Tune, where we talk about things aren't necessarily Newcastle related. And you know, Mark, it's quite pertinent this because, you know, there's so many mysteries around the world. You know, we've recently seen all these people descending on Loch Ness to try and find the Loch Ness monster, and there's now a new mystery in the world.
That's where you were when you went on holiday, wasn't it?
That's exactly what it is, mate. That's exactly where I've been. I've been hunting for the Loch Ness monster. But there is another mystery in the world now on top of all of that, you know, in terms of are we alone in the universe? Is the Loch Ness monster real? And also, whose fucking hand is scratching Cooper's ear right there? Because nobody seems to know whose hand was that.
That is just, yeah. I mean, I saw it, I'm like, something not quite right with that photo, and I was trying to figure out what it was, and it went,
was that his arm?
What on earth is that? Yeah, that was funny. I
saw people saying he's got his own ear scratching assistant. Apparently, I thought, God, Nottingham Forest must be doing so well. I wonder if he's got somebody to scratch his balls as well. You know, maybe he's got like a team of scratchers.
I love the story with him with his towel, because he misread the weather forecast, so he ended up having the towel in his hand for the whole game, and then turned around in the interview and went, "I'm sweating my balls off." Oh wait, can I say that? So, I
You
see
know,
he's good.
I
He's good
really
fun.
like him. I really like him as well.
Yeah.
I think he's a fantastic guy. Kendo reckons it was Shelby's. It must be a fluffy cup. Classic, absolutely classic. But yeah, that did make me laugh. Yeah, and I think Steve Cooper's definitely won a few fans. I think just with certainly with the way Forest have played, beating Chelsea, fantastic. That just every football fan around the world was pissed himself laughing at that. And yeah, he just seems like a proper bloke, doesn't he? But there was something else that flashed up in terms of out of tune as well, and I suppose it kind of plays into Bruno's little wobbler that he had the other week, didn't he, about Newcastle fans having a go at him. Short, stupid memories we've got, as Bruno says. Hey, it could be worse, mate. You could play for Leon still, Bruno, and my word, did they get it off their supporters, mate?
I've never. I mean, this has happened before. I read a little bit that obviously this happened previously and stuff, but to have their ultras with guy with a microphone completely giving them a dressing down was, I mean, when I first looked at it, I didn't read it properly, and I was like, oh, is this been the Phil Brown moment where the manager's been giving them a reprimand on the feet, the whole Jimmy Bullard thing? And then when I read it, I was like, oh, and then watch the clip. I was like, if you haven't watched this, you really have to go and watch it, because it's different. It's different class, and they got such a dressing down from the fans. It was unbelievable, and you could see it in the players' faces.
Oh, they looked,
yeah. I've never seen anything like it. But apparently, it's not the first time.
Absolutely not. And
but they were,
I think it's. Go on,
sorry. No, I was just going to say, they were absolutely fucking woeful against PSG. I mean, they were 4-0 down at half time, and it could probably have been 8. They were so poor.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, mate. I think you're right. It's just it's a funny one. I mean, like you say, that these European teams are so passionate. And they're not scared to give it to their fans. To the players. They throw things at them. They do protests. They do all sorts of stuff. All we really do is go on Twitter and tell them they're shite and stuff like that, and then that causes a meltdown, really, doesn't it? In all fairness, but I mean, there's been so much kicking off in the world of football, certainly in the last couple of days. And I was trying to look for a picture there, but we don't have one. But talk about it. So we've all seen it in the news. It's quite a big story. It kind of plays into the rant I had about, the Lascelles incident, about, players fearing for their own security and stuff like that. I mean, Man United, Arsenal, the weekend there, obviously Man United get beat, which is hilarious as always. But Mika Richards and Roy Keane are doing punditry for Sky, and they're hot footing their way back to the studio or whatever. And some guy who clearly had a few bevies by the sound of it and by the looks of it has decided to pick a fight with none other than Roy Keane, one of
all the people.
Of all the
honestly,
people, one of the hardest players we've ever seen. And I think from what I'm hearing is he tried to nut him, and then it ended up with him against the wall with Big Meeks grabbing him. And I must admit, listen, Big Meeks looks a right laugh, but I would not want to be on the wrong side of that bloke, because he is a unit, mate. He is a unit.
I think unit is the right word. Yeah, of all the people to try and pick on, you go for I mean, for God's sake. Look, if that guy's a season ticket holder and he has tried to stick one on him, he needs a season ticket revoked. He needs to be banned from football stadiums. There's just absolutely no need for it. It's utterly ridiculous. And I mean, comical in a sense, but absolutely ridiculous. And yeah, I completely. Why would you do? Why would you even get into the position to do that? I can almost understand having a bit of a quip to him, but to actually try and stick the nut on him is just unbelievable. I just want to pick up on this. Yeah, I don't know anymore, Stu. I don't. I'm completely with Marco Silva and what the fuck was going on at the weekend, because how that is not I've repeated that over and over in my head, and I'm looking at it going, how is he not given offside? The ball literally goes through him, and he has to jump out of the way. At one point, I kind of looked at it as if he was trying to flick the ball the way that he flicks his foot out. How it's not given offside, I don't know what VAR are doing. I don't know what the referees are doing. That's an easy decision to make, and they've absolutely fucked that one up.
Yeah, I think if I was going to try and answer that, Stu, what is a clear and obvious error? I would just simply answer Jordan Pickford is a clear and obvious error, is what I would say on many levels. I don't know if you also saw his own goal, but
poor Jordan.
What was that one when he saved it and he was doing this to the crowd? I mean, he is. I know goalkeepers are mad, right? But that bloke is fucking tapped. He's absolutely tapped. Something's not right with that bloke.
I am a fully fledged member of the goalkeeper union, and I cannot stand Jordan Pickford.
He's a what is he all about, man? What is he all about?
He will pull off saves that, fair enough. I mean, he had an absolute worldie in the game as well, where he was like a triple save that he had. Where fair enough,
yeah, after the own goal, yeah.
But it's the way that he then carries on, and that just get on with your job, like celebrate it. But he's so over the top. It's why people don't like him. But the own goal was just sensational fun, just to see it kind of back off the bar, hit him on the back and go in. And then what gets me more about that whole sort of incident is he turns around, he smiles.
Yeah,
you've just conceded you've just conceded a goal, and you've turned around and you're smiling. I'm really sorry. Yeah. I'm absolutely foaming at that point that the opposition have been allowed in a position where that's happened. And I mean, it was a heck of a shot by Cameron Archer, but it's just I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be smiling at that point.
I agree with Kendo. Refs are clear and obvious errors, and I also agree with you, George. Not joining the Evermore membership would be a clear and obvious error. Fantastic, mate.
What a way to send.
What keeping us right in the segue. Yes, as we said at the start, we have got a membership scheme now. It's only $1.99 a month. Smash it. Get yourself a fancy new badge. Get the podcast if you want. The podcast can be part of your YouTube.
You could be using that in the chat.
Yeah. It'll just come in and knock all your comments out of the way, and then Mark will have to go run and fix it and come back. And that's basically how the podcast generally operates.
It doesn't come with added sound effects, or what we're not able to add.
Absolutely. But yeah, we will have loads of new content kind of come in, and also we'll have, like Mark says, early videos for membership and everything else. And we'll be working on a few things. We're ever growing channel. We're still very young in terms of our YouTube journey. We're not even 2 years old yet as Evermore. So we've got loads of things to come in the journey. So join that membership now, and you'll get access to all those benefits as the months roll on as well, guys. But that's us all done. And we'll all finish with another What's Going On. It's been a pleasure, as always, Mark, chatting football about, even though Newcastle was shit at the weekend, this has cheered me up as it does. And I love the comments as well, guys. Thank you so much. We've had a little bit of argy going on in the comments there, but this is a safe space, guys. Remember, we don't give anybody any shit in this channel. We don't dig you out and pull you up. I know some people have said some other channels do that. We don't do that. All opinions are welcome. It's all a safe place to just have a chat about football, really, guys. So thank you very much, John. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Glad you all enjoyed the show. Get yourselves to bed. Have a cracking sleep. Look, Mark's been playing with his little toys in the background there with his new subscriber thing there. He does this to surprise me. So smash that button. Come and join us, as we say, guys. Have a cracking night's sleep, whatever you're doing, and we'll catch you all later.
Take care, guys.
See you later.